Hi Scorpio, welcome to your mid-April 2020 general tarot reading. It's Reina here. Let's see. I can't get rid of that card as much as I try. Picking an additional card. Okay. All right. The heart of the matter is connected to the Five of Wands and what that represents. Some sort of competition, some sort of battle. Sometimes this isn't necessarily something negative, where it could be that you are like literally competing for something, and maybe it's very strenuous, but it's also giving you a sense of direction and giving your life meaning. But if it is something more challenging, it can be a dog-eat-dog environment at work where everybody's in it for themselves, and it's like nobody has any kind of regard for working together, like teamwork and things like that. If it's a relationship, it can be kind of like you spur each other on to greater achievement, or that one person is looking at the other partner and feeling envious, feeling that that person has more going on than they do, and so using that as an excuse to create problems, pick at that person, and that kind of dynamic. And, you do have a co-ruler of Mars in for your sign, Scorpio, along with Pluto. And so Mars is the ruler of Aries. So being competitive may be something that a lot of Scorpio people are, and that they actually enjoy that type of situation because it pushes them to better themselves. So I don't want to put my own feelings about not liking competition onto you, because it may give you that sense of life being kind of exciting. And especially somebody who's a professional athlete, or, there's other types of professions that thrive on competition, and it doesn't have to be like toxic necessarily, but this can be about conflict. So whether it's in a personal relationship or in a workplace, and that can be very debilitating because it creates a lot of stress. In the past position, we have the Hermit card, so it's a stark contrast in those two types of energies. One is very kind of extroverted, and this, of course, is very introspective. And this may be something that has recently come about, where you have become more spiritual. I think, Scorpios, by their very nature, are going to be highly sensitive and intuitive, but that doesn't mean that they actively pursue it. They just, it's such a part of who they are that some of you may simply act in ways that support that, but you're not intentional about it. It's just kind of like you just know things, or you just, are very sensitive towards your environment. This is more, seeking the truth, seeking knowledge. And this, I feel like a lot of times people do this when they're trying to make sense of what is going on. And, with what has been happening in the world and what that has required of us, I shouldn't be surprised I keep drawing the Hermit recently. Because whether a person, resonates with that type of lifestyle or not, it's been kind of forced on them to some degree or another. And I was just saying in another reading that I just did for Sagittarius that my life is really, kind of like what a lot of people have been forced to live. That's really my daily reality anyway. So nothing major has changed in my life, but there still are restrictions, and that doesn't feel good. And so there is an adjustment, but for some people there's a major adjustment, a lot more than it would be for me. And in some relationships, if you have been fighting more because you're spending more time together, that may be eye-opening. That may kind of make you aware of some of the underlying things that have, been there all along, but the distraction of work and all the other busy things or activities that have been curtailed, that was able to obscure that. And so it is a good thing to expose this, because that can give you more information, and information leads to that knowledge becomes power and empowers you to make informed decisions about your future. Also, I feel like with this combination, if you are interested in somebody who, or if you've met somebody recently who's a Virgo, that's connected to the Hermit, and the Five of Wands is somebody you're with now, maybe a Leo, because I'm talking about a fire sign especially. Or if it's the other way around, if you were with a Virgo, or, that's in your past, and now you're interested in a fire sign. I actually am hoping that it's more like meeting a Virgo, because, we have this, maybe... I can't, maybe it's different for each person if these cards represent astrological signs. The bottom line that I want to say with the Five of Wands is that it can be very combative energy. If a relationship is one-dimensional, based on the physical rather than the emotional, that can sometimes trick somebody into thinking I'm in love, or because I'm having all the passionate feelings, but it's really more like lust, or it just doesn't, it's really not what it seems to be. And the two people are basically incompatible, and you can kind of tell. Perhaps you've met somebody who is much more introverted, like the Hermit, is much more low-key, and yet they are a good balance for you because of that. And they're not as flashy. If you're with a Leo, for instance, they're not as flashy. They're not as maybe as exciting in the classic sense of the word, but they're much more energetically well suited for you. The higher message is the Eight of Wands. So even though, usually with this position, I don't interpret it in a literal sense of like, okay, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. I'm looking at the bigger picture. What this card can mean literally in a mundane sense is kind of like everything happening and lots of things, lots of activity and things like that. So looking at it from the spiritual perspective, if you have felt like you're in a stagnant pattern for some reason, and change doesn't seem like a possibility, things can like shift very quickly. And I would say for this card is to be ready for change. And it's kind of funny because Scorpio is a fixed sign. And so because you're a fixed sign, you tend to not be spontaneous. You tend to be more slow to change, to do something, like you want to plan it out in advance. You're very on a schedule and things like that. And it's interesting because in my situation, I have a lot of mutable energy in my personal points, but my rising sign is Taurus, which is a fixed sign as well, and I know that I'm very much like that as well. I don't like to just make decisions suddenly. I'm cautious in that sense, but sometimes things come up where you have to kind of grab an opportunity or else it could slip through your hands. So be on the lookout for things to change. And I would say, I'm not necessarily, maybe even as soon as the end of April, when the sun goes into Taurus, and it's, I'm trying to think though, let me see. Well, even now, I would say even now is a better time when it's still in Aries, because that's actually your 6th house, and that can be for work matters. But when it goes into Taurus, it'll be the 7th house, and that could be for love situations, especially something that is more of a serious relationship. So the bottom line, this is true of life in general, though, is that you always have to be prepared to do something and take advantage of it in a very spontaneous way, because sometimes that's just how it works, and you can't just sit back because you might lose out on something. And if you feel like you're at loggerheads with a relationship or a work situation, some other opportunity can present itself. And it's all about what your makeup is like, what you kind of like are willing to do about it. If you're adventurous enough, or if you're too kind of like contracted because you're afraid, What crosses you is the Four of Pentacles. I think in this case, this can be, you see how the person's holding on to their money, and that can be like a fear-based thing, where you're like, I don't know if this is going to work out, so I don't know if I want to do it. And of course you have that choice, and in some cases maybe it wouldn't be advisable to do certain things. But if you are feeling like other people are just trying to tear you down in some cases, competition isn't that bad if it's just people are trying to do their best. But what about when they're trying to destroy other people in the process and make them look bad? Then it goes into a new territory. And same with personal relationships, and these can even be friendships sometimes. Sometimes you have friends who you think that they really like you and things like that, but they're kind of saying little things, little digs, and it's really because they're competitive. They want what you have, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to kind of make you have self-doubt and kind of like undermine you. And that's comparing themselves to you and feeling envious. And or if you have like a healthy relationship and they don't, trying to undermine that. That's a form of competition too, because they're like comparing themselves, and they feel like they're coming up short, and so they have to knock you down a peg. So that's something to be always aware of if you're dealing with people like that. And these could be like long-term friends or relatives, you know. It doesn't have to be somebody that you just met. But this is great because what's coming is the Sun card. The Sun card is one of those catch-all cards of good stuff happening. Obviously love, you can see it there. Children is connected to the Sun card, and also success, healing, prosperity. And the Sun card is connected to Leo, so maybe the Leo person is a good person, maybe the Earth sign person is the problem for you, Scorpio. And one thing I want to say is that sometimes we are in a situation where we are so concerned about money, or that false sense of security, that we forget about joy. We forget about feeling like, we forget about creativity. This is another thing that the Sun card represents. And the Sun, if you think about it, I think it's pretty universal that if it's a nice day out and the sun is out, and, unless maybe it's 5 degrees outside, but if it's like, a warm day and the sun is out, people tend to be in a good mood. The sun brings that out in us because the sun is our life. And the life force, yes. So honoring your life force, Scorpio. What brings you joy? Not trading in, a sense of, which is kind of a false sense of security through money, for something that is creative, that you can feel a sense of like you are putting your own stamp on something, because fire energy is very individualistic, and this is what artists are. An artist who is a true artist is somebody who has a vision that is based on who they are, and they share it with the world. And you have to be an individual to be able to really truly express things that way. So, Van Gogh didn't have the same style as, Picasso, when, in terms of their paintings. They had their own brush strokes, they had their own style, and you have your own style, your individuality. And maybe you're in a corporate environment where you're expected to conform to some sort of, groupthink or group behavior type of a thing. And it's just not where you're at. Even if you have experienced success, money, it may feel like there's something missing there. And so I did pick this card, and I picked an additional card because it's not how I feel we should end the reading. This outcome card, the Eight of Swords, of feeling oppressed. And again, the swords can relate to thoughts. So what kind of thoughts do you tell yourself about your situation? Even when you have success or the opportunity to experience success, you may be scared. Scorpio, like in a personal relationship, if you meet somebody who really is caring and, all the things that you have been dreaming about, it can be incredibly terrifying, because it can feel like that person is obliterating all of the things that you had told yourself before, or the things that you had believed about life, and kind of shattering that. And now you have to accept the fact that you do have good in your life. Sometimes it's more comfortable when life is kind of like proving itself in a bad way. I know that sounds terrible because it is. It is sad to be more comfortable with failure than success, but it's just part of the process. It does go away. You do, the more conscious you can be and not have a fear of success, including, when I say success, I mean a successful relationship as well, the more you can embrace good in your life. And so I picked an additional card, and I picked the Four of Swords, which is really about going within, kind of like the Hermit, but to me more about rest, even rest of the physical body. So during this time when, not all Scorpios may be off of work, but a fair number of you are, and even those that aren't, you can still take time to do this, to, take a day for yourself, an afternoon for yourself, whatever it is, and kind of be able to, well, actually this card could even be like a retreat, but in lieu of actually doing something where you have to go somewhere other than your own residence to do it, because it might not be that easy to do this now, you can do it on your own. I mean, it could be as simple as taking a long walk alone, and where you know that you're not going to be disturbed, just contemplating things, contemplating what you want and where you are and where you want to be, and how are you going to make that happen. For some people, they need physical rest. If the Five of Wands has been a very stressful situation, then you might need that in order to just be able to function and have clarity of thought. But being very thoughtful about your life. The number 4 is a number of order. So if the swords represent thoughts, it's really getting your thoughts in order, your mind in order. The 8 of Swords can be more of like negative self-talk and self-limiting beliefs that have to be eradicated in order to fully embrace what the possibilities are in your life, represented by the 8 of Wands and the Sun card. Okay, that's what I have for you, Scorpio. So I hope that you resonated with this, enjoyed it, and if you'd like a personal reading, particularly astrological readings, I do tarot readings, but for new clients, I especially like to look at their chart in doing a reading first, if I can, if I have the honor of doing that. I actually have a reading that has a greatly reduced price, which is a combination of full-length tarot interpretation and a full-length tarot reading for an introductory price. It's called The Whole Enchilada, so you can check that out on my website, rainamoonastrology.com. The link is below. Take care. Bye.